She's going to speak more about Ready for 100, and so without further ado, I will introduce Stevie Freeman-Montes.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I appreciate those kind words, and I'm so excited to be here today. I see a lot of familiar faces and a lot of new faces as well. But this project and this initiative is something that I'm really excited to talk about. It's a newer initiative that we've been working on and has provided incredible focus for us in the last year, and it's all really been based on community requests to work on this issue. And I'm really happy because it's around solutions, and tying back to Nicole Scott's keynote this morning that was so inspiring is that all of us here are really in the trenches trying to figure out solutions to local problems that we're facing and global problems that we're facing, and it's very easy to be overwhelmed by some of what we hear out there. So this is just one example of some of the programs that the city is working on to move things forward and understand and plan for renewable energy in this circumstance. So the last 2 years I've talked about our climate change adaptation plan, but this is our Ready for 100 initiative, and it all started with a packed city commission meeting. I'm sure the Vice Mayor remembers that, and a lot of folks who are here today were probably in that meeting, and it was a standing room only. There was a presentation to our city commissioners, and they said, we want the city to pursue 100% renewable energy and develop a plan for renewable energy and work with stakeholders to do so. And so they unanimously adopted these targets. The resolution itself was passed in June of 2017, and like the Vice Mayor said, includes a community-wide target of 100% by 2045 and 100% for just our city operations by 2030 and a shorter-term 50% goal by 2024. It also directed staff to work with community members to develop strategies to reach this goal and to focus on strategies that look at local job creation and social equity. And so I'll talk about how we attempted to do that in the last year of our planning. And there's lots more detail in the definitions and what this all includes, but it all started with this unanimous resolution that our city commissioners adopted and really gave us the policy direction as staff to say, go try to figure this out. And we're still trying to figure it out a little bit. But how it all started from there is that we had a community input series of meetings, and the first one was in December of 2017, and it was a huge meeting, a big meeting, where we said, what are your strategies? What would you support, all of you that are here, to help us move the needle and reach this 100% renewable energy goal? And we had kind of Post-it notes around the room, and we said, what are community-oriented strategies for residents and businesses to transition their homes and businesses to more renewable energy and energy efficiency? What are strategies for municipal operations over here, and transportation strategies over here? And we also had utility-focused strategy. Florida Power and Light was present at all of our community meetings over the last year, and we solicited input for utilities as well, and we covered policies at the state level that influenced what strategies were available to us. So we also collected what I called a wish list of, well, we can't do it now, maybe due to some restrictive state level policies, but we wish we could. So we kind of categorized all those wish lists, and that helps provide information for our policymakers to know what the community would like to see changed as well at the state level. So we went through this process of just getting very high level ideas at our first meeting. At our second meeting, we started to prioritize those. We didn't just look at what strategy would get us the most energy efficiency and the most renewable energy transition. We also asked what strategy would have the potential to create the most local jobs. What strategy has a specific focus on historically marginalized communities? What strategies have co-benefits around flood protection or green space or climate adaptation? So we voted on strategies in a very holistic way to inform them being prioritized, in a different way than just strictly 100% renewable energy transition. For example, we could have maybe bought renewable energy credits and had no very minimal local benefits. But that's not how we took the first year approach here. So we prioritized those, we developed a report, and we got feedback from the community on that report. And then we had some cake and we celebrated because it was a year of long planning together. So we brought that report to City Commission just in September. And that's kind of what we've been doing so far, but what we plan to do ongoing, because obviously this is a long-term planning process, is that currently we're planning to have two community workshops a year to track our progress on the strategies we've identified, to evaluate the process, make sure we're doing it right, and to really look at data, because it's starting off very high level, and I'm going to go over some of the strengths and weaknesses that I think we have right now, but it's starting out very high level, and I think we're all getting progressively more detailed as we go through this process. So then we plan to present to our City Commission once a year, and I just want to mention that some of the strategies, I'll go over them, will require their own separate targeted public and community meetings. For example, we hope to kick off a green building code in early January of this next year, and so we'll have to have really targeted community meetings to understand what the community wants in terms of a green building code and what they would support, so we can take a detailed recommendation to our commission. So that's one example where we're going to have even more input on a really focused idea. So these are the project goals at a very high level, and we have data. Ultimately, we want to reduce local energy consumption first and prioritize energy efficiency. That was another thing that one of the other criteria we worked on was prioritizing energy efficiency when we had people vote on strategies. But we want to reduce local energy consumption, generate locally consumed electricity from renewable zero-emission sources, eliminate the use of fossil fuels from the transportation sector, and I'll talk about that in a second. That's a whole kind of focus in of itself. And then all of these three together, the goal is to reduce local greenhouse gas emissions. We do a local greenhouse gas inventory. Jeff did our most recent one in 2015, and we plan to do every 3 years from here on out. We're going to do another one here in 2019 for 2018, and that has some really good information as well. So all of these three things have really specific data that inform them that we're tracking over time. We have our citywide electricity consumption. We have electricity for city operations. I'm not going to go into all the data, but this is just one example of our greenhouse gas emissions results. We also have greenhouse gas inventories for 2003, 2007, and 2015, so we can track our progress over time on that. And you can see the different sectors that we measure, from industrial energy to commercial energy to residential energy, transportation, fossil fuel locally, and wastewater and street lighting and all that fun stuff. So a few other data points that I just think is interesting within this initiative is that we have a goal to transition our municipal operations, our city buildings, to 100% renewable energy. Our city operations make up about 4% of all the energy that is demanded within our city. So it is important to do our city operations and to walk the talk, but in the bigger pie of it, we recognize that helping and understanding businesses, especially the commercial sector and residential sector, is huge, and that's really what's going to help move the needle forward to truly get to this goal. Also, the biggest question is how much renewable energy do we have now? And it's estimated, we know how much Florida Power and Light's electric grid that serves the city of Sarasota has of renewable energy right now. And we have a little small estimate for the amount of on-site kind of rooftop solar that we have in our city. So we combined those, and we have an estimated 1.8% of renewable energy, the way that we define it in our current electricity grid, which is not good. We have a long way to go. And so that's really, I think I've heard a lot of the questions of, look at how far you have to go. Do you think it's really feasible? And I truly believe that this initiative is providing that focus, and it's kind of driving. I'm that kind of person that gets driven by the challenge, you know. So I do think that it's feasible, and I think it's something that we have to try to do locally in order to build the momentum and get everybody around the same vision on it. So this is a picture of what the report looks like, but in the report you'll see all the strategies that the community identified in this process, and it's broken out into these buckets that I mentioned earlier. And in the report, each strategy is ranked in prioritization. It has a description of the strategy, and then it also has what the community identified as the city's role versus the community's role. You know, if there was a nonprofit lead or an academic lead or another lead agency, we identified whose roles were involved in implementing that strategy. And I think that was a really important part of the conversation in our very last meeting of who's going to own the momentum of this strategy. And so these are some examples of the strategies that were prioritized. These are only the community-focused strategies. The two most important, one was to integrate green job training and green building design into the Marion Anderson Place site redevelopment. And those of you who might not be familiar with that redevelopment project that's coming in the city, it's in North Sarasota, and it was highly prioritized for the social equity and economic development and job creation potential. And there's a lot of reasons why, but also integrating green building and energy efficiency into the Bay project, which is our huge bayfront redevelopment and kind of green space project that's coming soon. And the green building code, I mentioned starting on that, implementing a property assessed clean energy program, which I'm happy to relay was passed by our city commission just last month. The Sarasota County program, we opted into the Sarasota County program. So as you can see, another question I get often is, how much is it going to cost? You know, everybody wants that one number. Some of these are projects that have very detailed, some of these strategy ideas are projects that have very detailed upfront costs, and you can calculate the return on investment on it, and you can develop a budget to go shop around and try to get funding. But some of them are policy things that we need to implement, such as property assessed clean energy program or a Sarasota solar co-op program, where it's just a policy or program and it doesn't have the same budget implication. So there's not a real clear answer whenever somebody wants that $1 amount. It depends on if you're talking a policy or a project. And then just a couple more slides. The strengths and weaknesses, I'm very transparent in this process. We're still early on. We know that we need to get progressively more detailed and serious about this and more momentum around it. But we know we need more technical assistance in our process. We would love to do, for example, we'd love to do a community-wide solar rooftop potential analysis, which some communities have done in Florida. We need to understand in more detail exactly how much each strategy would take us towards the goal of the transition. And we would like to understand more on local and state renewable energy credits. And you know, we didn't really tackle that in our technical first strategy that we developed this last year. And the strengths, though, most importantly, I think the strength has been this community input, and I really recommend folks who are interested in this process to go to the afternoon session with the Sarasota Climate Justice Coalition. They were really the core group that showed up to our meetings and also are out in the community implementing community and business projects, and they have just been so supportive so far, and they'll kind of talk about from the grassroots and kind of community advocacy level what they're working on. But that community input and that community involvement and transparency and kind of keeping tabs and checks on each other and how everybody is doing with the implementation of it is a real strength. And of course, the political support. Right now we have, we've had unanimous approval of this initially, and I've had good feedback when we've presented updates to our city commission and our administration, and so that goes so far. That makes all the difference, of course. Our local expertise is incredible. I've had so many people who have offered to do small bits of the analysis and who have volunteered their time and expertise, and I know that there's even more to capitalize on in that regard. So if you have any technical expertise in any of those areas on the top, definitely reach out to me, because we would love to build on anything that folks have to offer. And then lastly, it has provided focus in sustainability world in my work, and I'm sure Lee Hayes and Sarah and Mary at the county can talk to this. There's so much focus that you can go on. There's climate issues, transportation issues, stormwater issues, habitat restoration issues, electric vehicles, it can go on. And so when there's clear community priorities that have been requested of us by residents and community members, it helps provide that focus and that momentum that gets us into really detailed and elevates our literacy on the topic. And so we've learned a lot as a staff, and I think as a administration, on renewable energy issues because we've had this target, and it's helping us kind of understand the scale of what we need to do to get there. So that's been a huge strength. And I just want to end with our local successes. We were talking about solutions, and it's important, I think, to reflect on the past year and all that's been done underneath this topic, not necessarily by the city, but by a lot of community members. I'm so proud of the recent, Sarasota County was really the lead, but a recent grant by Gulf Coast Community Foundation, Bransick Foundation, which was matched by a national foundation for $300,000 to help nonprofits implement energy upgrades and do renewable energy. So that's huge because nonprofits really have a lot of challenges. It is, thank you. And I have to commend Lee Hayes, who really led that effort and had the vision for it. It was huge. So that's hopefully going to get started soon after the new year, but that's such an exciting project to be coming soon. The Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, as I mentioned, being tackled by Sarasota County that the city opted into. That's just one of many financing tools that is now will be available to residents once we get the agreements all worked out. And I forget what the other ones were on there, but we completed the the most recent solar co-op. We have a solar feasibility assessment that was performed for us by Brilliant Harvest and Bill back there that helped us understand what our solar feasibility and ROIs and costs were for our own city operations. So we're kind of developing a budget to do hopefully some solar installations for our city facilities. So lots of things happening. Those are really just within the last 9 months that a lot of that has happened. So things are moving forward, even though I might not see it. And I just hope, I hope that you all will appreciate that as much as I do. And I welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Stevie. So we're using, if you were here this morning, we have Menti.com, and you can see the code up there, 638882. So again, if anybody wasn't here, that's what we're using. Hold it closer. Okay. So the first question for you, Steve, you can see there, I'll read it to you. It's hard to see, I know, from where you're standing, but it says, what is being done to monitor smart growth? They go on to say, I'm shocked at how much construction is occurring in light of our traffic issues and limited resources.
Yeah. So
what is done? What is being done?
That's a really huge hot topic right now, and maybe the Vice Mayor has anything you want to add on it too. But we have constant conversations. We have a new planning division who is looking at our transportation master plan actually in the afternoon. Colleen McGue, is Colleen here? Our Chief Transportation Officer will be talking about our transportation planning and our traffic issues and very progressive smart growth mentality around what we're planning to do with the planning and implementation of projects there. We're looking at also sidewalk widths and street trees and trying to understand how to do better with all the competing priorities of utilities and needing shade in urban heat island. And so I would say the planning department is definitely doing a lot of work on this. And do you have anything you want to add, Ms. Mayor?
The only thing I want to add is that the community's voice is so very important. It really does lead the discussion and it does lead the decision making. So when you feel strongly about wider sidewalks or street trees or canopy trees or traffic mitigation or any of these issues, please make your voice be heard. Please don't be shy about reaching out to your city commissioners and your county commissioners. We are supposed to represent you and your voice, and you need to speak out and let us know. So don't feel that you're insignificant. Please do. I just had a meeting yesterday with a group. We're doing a Lemon Avenue Mall project in the city of Sarasota. And the project was going in one direction, and a group of community advocates who are advocating for canopy trees along the street and a variety of canopy trees as well, made their voice heard. We had a big meeting, and the city staff heard what they had to say. And so the plan, I think, is going to be looked at with different eyes and in a different light. So it's these kinds of little efforts that I think are so very important. So please, please speak out, write, call us, and do whatever you need to do to organize to make your voice be heard.
So the next question is, how do you measure what 100% really is?
Yeah, so we have a definition of what we're defining renewable zero emission energy sources as, and how we're doing this is we're looking at those, I wish I had my slides up. There was the 4 project goals, the 3 around, there was one on our overall community, our community-wide electricity use in kilowatt hours. So we're trying to produce all that's left over after we do energy efficiency. We're trying to produce all that's left over by renewable sources. And so then you go to the next data of that kind of pie chart is how it was shown in one visual of trying to get the makeup of our electric grid sourced by more renewable sources. And so we look at how much how much renewable sources Florida Power and Light has in their grid and how much is planned in their grid over the next 10 years in their 10-year site plan. And then we also look at, we have a franchise agreement with them till 2040, and then we have this goal for 2045. And so we look at what they're planning for their electric grid, and then we also look at how much renewable energy is being produced by rooftop or on-site systems within the city boundaries. And so that's what kind of makes up that pie of the renewable energy locally that we hope will just become greater and greater based on the strategies that we implement.
And Stevie, just one last question. The questions aren't up right now, but I think it's on. Well, here we go. Thank you very much. But overall, like, what do you think is the biggest thing the city can do to really make a difference and improve your footprint? What's like the #1 thing you can do?
That is so
I just read that book Drawdown, so I got some things in my mind.
I know. Oh, gosh.
Because I'm taking notes. I work for Manatee County. I need to know this too.
I know. I am thinking of Drawdown. I just went to the Paul Hawken event recently and had seen him speak elsewhere. And there's differences between local and global impact. But I think looking at your own personal consumption and looking at your transportation, I think transportation footprint is huge. It has local emissions. And so looking at how you can reduce your local transportation emissions is huge. And then your energy and what options you have for energy efficiency for your own home and advocating in your business, your workplace, because that's such a huge part of our local energy consumption as businesses, advocating and being the leader in your own workplace for energy efficiency or renewable energy is equally as important as well.
Well, Vice Mayor and Stevie, thank you so much for being here. Please give them a warm round of applause. And they'll be around this afternoon too, so you can ask them other questions about their program.